Iraqi refugees, people who have had so much taken from them, to develop skills and craftsmanship to enable them to help in furthering the city's beautiful ancient traditions. Madaba, tolerant and diverse city, has given these refugees an opportunity to once again practice their faith freely. It has enabled them to become part of the area's rich cultural fabric and taught them the skill to help them to begin to rebuild their lives. Before I left Madaba on that trip that I mentioned, the refugees presented me with a gift, a beautiful mosaic, to express their gratitude for our support in their time of need. We will display this in USAID's main lobby as a symbol of our work to assist those who face persecution and violence merely for exercising their faith. It will also serve as a challenge to us. Take up the mission that the world's great faith traditions call for, to live lives and build communities for believers and non-believers alike. Or in the words of John the Baptist, to share a tunic with him who has none.
One of the great sponsors of the Values Voters Summit is the Americans for Religious Freedom. As we've just been talking about that in our last couple of sessions, let's take a quick look at Americans for Religious Freedom.
I was told we don't write about Jesus in school.
They cut my mic at a graduation speech just because I thanked God for his guidance.
They said I couldn't read the Bible at school during my free time.
My teacher said that I couldn't use a Bible verse in my class assignment.
Let's hear it for Americans for Religious Freedom. For our final speaker this morning, we're delighted to have Dr. Sebastian Gorka, Talk Show on Salem Radio Network, America First. He served President Donald Trump as Deputy Assistant for Strategy and has briefed the CIA, DIA, the U.S. Navy SEALs, and the Commandant of the Marine Corps. He has also testified before Congress on the threat of global jihadism. He remains a guest instructor at the John F. Kennedy Special Warfare Center and School at Fort Bragg, the home of the Green Berets. Dr. Gorka writes for The Hill and has written 3 books, Defeating Jihad, Why We Fight, Defeating America's Enemies with No Apologies, and he has a brand new book out that you can get right here at the Values Voters Summit or at bookstores everywhere called The War for American Soul. Ladies and gentlemen, would you please welcome Dr. Sebastian Gorka.
Morning.
Like I should take a nap. So let me tell you a little story. My wife and I just moved home recently and we had a little housewarming. And our neighbor from where we used to live came to the housewarming. Great guy, wonderful family, former Marine, now works in the intelligence community. And he regaled us the sad story of what happened to his house in the recent floods here. We had some very heavy rains in Northern Virginia, and he ended up with 3 feet of water in his basement. Huge amount of damage. I asked him how bad it is and where are they now. And he said, we're negotiating with the insurance company. It's all going to be fine, except we lost all of our photo albums with our children. Right? So not valuable in terms of currency value, but priceless in terms of memory. And it made me think, what are the items that I would grab if that hurricane were happening? God forbid there was a fire. What are the handful of things that I'd reach for before I left our home to the elements? It's not many, really. Most things can be replaced. Photo albums really can't. And I remember the one physical item that would always be with me. And it doesn't look like much. It's about yay big. It's about 1 inch tall. And it's made out of Bakelite. Do you remember Bakelite? right? Before plastic, fancy plastics and polymers. And it's a crucifix, a hand-hewn crucifix, with the cross being blue and the body of our Lord in white. Now, why would I say that? Lots of fancier crosses. I've been to the Holy Land. I've brought back crucifixes and crosses from Israel made out of the olive trees where our Lord walked. Why that one? Let me explain. There's a story in my book, The War for America's Soul, which describes how my life changed in the span of one sentence. Sometimes you can truly identify a moment in your life where your existence comes to a fork in the road, and there's only two branches. You can go this way, or you can go that way. For me, that moment came on a beach in southern France when I was about 8 years old. My parents, as children, suffered under fascist occupation. They lived in Hungary. My mother was born in 1939. My father was born in 1930. They lived as children under the oppression of World War II and then the fascist dictatorship. After that, my father was arrested and tortured and given a life sentence by the secret police of the next dictatorship. The fascists were replaced with the communists. He would eventually escape from prison during the glorious 10 days of the Hungarian Revolution. And he'd escaped to the West with the 17-year-old daughter of a fellow prison mate, hiding under a train carriage, and then eventually literally crawling through a minefield into free Austria. That 17-year-old girl, whose father was in prison with my father for the crime of being a leader of the YMCA. They escaped Hungary to Austria and were relocated eventually to the UK, where I was born and bred. But I was born into liberty. The UK, the mother of democracies. I grew up under Margaret Thatcher. I looked to the Gibbet, to Ronald Reagan, as a hero. But my life changed when I truly understood what my parents had lived through. Because my father was a great athlete. He was on the national crew team for Hungary when he was arrested by the communists. They never broke him. So he was a great bear of a man. He loved to swim. And on that day, as I was sitting on the sand with my G.I. Joes, he came out of the ocean. This amazing figure of a man. And I looked at him. And I saw something I hadn't realized before. He had these lines on his wrists, these white lines. And I knew he was far too young to be wrinkled on his wrists. So like a foolish child, I asked him, "Hey Dad, what's that?" Without skipping a beat, no emotion, he responded, "Well, son, that's where the secret police bound my wrists together with wire behind my back so they could hang me from the ceiling of the torture chamber." That's when my life changed. Why? Because from that sentence onward, I knew at a deep, deep level in my soul that evil is real. That evil exists in the hearts of men and it walks the earth. It's not a word that is just related to or reserved mythological stories or children's stories about witches, dragons, and magic forests. Evil exists. And that crucifix was given to me by my father. Because when he was in prison, it was his faith and the Lord that kept him alive and sane. And he had a Bakelite toothbrush, which was multicolored, blue and white. And with a little shard of glass, he cut that toothbrush. And as an amateur sculptor, he was an artist as well, formed the body of our Lord out of that toothbrush and the shape of a cross, so that God would always be with him, even in his direst moments. In my book, The War for America's Soul, I tell the story of how he was imprisoned with Catholic priests, because they too were enemies of the state, of course. And the incredible story of how once a week they would be given a little bit of sweet bread or pastry, that now and again would have some raisins in it. The luxury of the prison food once a week. And all the believers, all the patriots would collect the raisins together so that they could illicitly make fermented grape juice in prison, save some bread, and then say mass, while the communists were torturing and executing their fellow patriots. These are the things we have to remember today as we roll headlong into the specter of a socialist America. We have one political grouping in our country that has come out of the closet as socialists. It is shocking as the child of those who escaped fascism and communism that according to the annual poll of the victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, an amazing institution here in DC, every year they do a big poll with Uganda. According to the victims of Communism Memorial Foundation, in their last poll, 52% of American millennials wish to live in a socialist or communist America. Not funny, madam. It's not funny. It's deadly serious. Because this ideology has caused the deaths of an estimated 100 million souls in the last century. And people like Alexander Ocasio-Cortez, people like Bernie Sanders and Liz Warren, wish to realize it here. And we can't let them. A good friend of mine, an Orthodox Jew, taught me one day, and Beth, if you're listening, I give you full credit. There's something special about this country. The greatest nation created by God. Hang on. I get the big bucks. You can just relax and listen. My friend Jeff says, greatest nation created by God, Israel. Greatest nation created by man, America. That's the connection. And we must never, ever forget it. As Ronald Reagan reminded us, we need to be the shining city on the hill. But as he also said, the loss of liberty, the extinction is what he actually said, the extinction of liberty is but one generation away. And look, I am honored to have worked for the president when he was candidate Trump, and it was the highest honor of my professional career to deputy for strategy in the White House. But I have to be very, very honest with you. In 2016, all he did is open a window of liberty, a very small, grace-filled window of liberty. And that window can close in the next 389 days. They are on a warpath. Think of what they've done to this man. Think of what they've done to his family, anybody who works for him or is associated with him. They called him a racist, a bigot, a white supremacist. They called this man an anti-Semite when his most senior advisor is his Jewish son-in-law, and when his grandchildren are Jewish, and when he is the first president in 20 years of broken promises. 23 years. Every single president for 23 years has said, yes, we'll recognize Jerusalem. Yes, we'll move our embassy. All of them broke their promise to our brothers and sisters in Israel. Along comes Donald Trump. Let me tell you a story. When Donald Trump wanted to do that, make that decision, I haven't actually revealed this before. He had a meeting of his principals, his cabinet members, his national security advisor. Only 3 people in his administration, only 3 people supported the president's decision. One of them who did it, who had a very robust reputation in the media, who had a nickname of Mad Dog, said, "Don't do it, Mr. President. You will ignite World War III, and I don't have enough Marines to protect our embassies in the Middle East. Don't do it." What was my boss's response? 3 things. I promised brothers and sisters in Israel. I promised the American people. Oh, and by the way, it's the right thing to do. Who Donald Trump is. I have a personal request to you that I'll illustrate with another story. It's a morning story. I was recently asked to address a Republican conservative women's group for their annual dinner. And I was on a huge crowd at a very, very fancy country club not far from here. And I arrived early, the car park was full. It was going to be a packed dinner. As I'm walking through the car park to the club, I realized something strange. This is a conservative Republican event. And outside of my car, only one other vehicle in the whole car park had a Trump sticker. And I actually mentioned in my speech, and I said, "Thank you ladies for coming. Thank you for your support for local candidates. Thank you for your activism. Thank you for knocking on doors. Oh, by the way, why aren't you standing up for the president? Can't even put a bumper sticker on your car? And don't give me this, oh, the crazy liberals will key my car. Oh, really? That's the level of your support for the president? That he is being called outrageous things every single day? That Obama's CIA director is calling him a traitor on national television, and you're worried about your car being keyed? Show some backbone! And don't be misled. The decision last week by Nancy, the capitulation to the squad, who I prefer to call the 4 horsewomen of the apocalypse, that wasn't a spur-of-the-moment capitulation. They have been planning that since he was sworn in on January 20th, 2017. Because they decided that America chose the wrong candidate, quote-unquote. Instead, it should have been a woman who thought it was owed to her because of her gender and her last name. Perhaps the most corrupt politician. What are you prepared to do in the next 389 days? You can write checks to candidates, you can knock on doors, be a poll monitor. It's all great, but it's not enough. It is not enough. Because you know that they will be organized. You know they will cheat, lie, and bus people to the polling station. So I ask you very simply to do the following. In addition to everything you've done as activists, as supporters of FRC, and I thank you on behalf of Tony and his great team, I want every single one of you to become what the military calls a force multiplier. I don't care how old you are. I don't care how technically challenged you deem yourself to be. If you are not on social media every single day supporting the president, you are part of the problem. That incredible Americans like Dennis Prager, you'll be hearing from later today, there are reasons that he is being censored and throttled on social media. There are reasons that in internal Google emails, they're calling him and Ben Shapiro Nazis. They are afraid. And we have them on the run, but they will not give up, and you owe it to Donald J. Trump, to be there for him. Former Deputy Assistant to the President, to every single body in this room and everybody watching. I want everybody who has a pulse and who is breathing, who is listening to me, to by midnight tonight, get a Twitter account, get a Facebook account, and an Instagram account. I don't care if all you do is retweet the president. That's fine. You're already being a megaphone. This is like the pamphleteers of the 18th century. These are our pamphlets for saving the republic. But even better than that, wherever you live, wherever you come from, document the insanity around you. Document the corruption, the lies, and the propaganda. Take a photograph, do a film, and post it, because that is the only way we will win. That is the reason why the president has 63 million followers on just Twitter alone. Because the fake news industrial complex is out to destroy him. And we cannot let that happen. At midnight tonight, every single one of you, Twitter, Facebook, getting out of the sewers in the youthful uprising before they fought the Nazi occupational forces. We want him to be standing right next to that statue of freedom fighters fighting fascists. And after some negotiation, they agreed. And I'll give you the 3 most important stanzas from that speech. If you haven't watched it, if you haven't read it, do so tonight. You can watch the video, you can read the transcript of the White House's website. But these 3 stanzas are everything you need to know about not only the plight of our republic, but the plight of our civilization. As I stand here today before this incredible crowd, this faithful nation, we can still hear those voices that echo through history. Their message is as true today as ever. The people of Poland, the people of America, and the people of Europe still cry out, we want God. Our own fight today in the West does not begin on the battlefield. It begins with our mind, our will, and our soul. Today, the ties that unite our civilization are no less vital and demand no less defense than that bare shred of land on which the hope of Poland once totally rested. Our freedom, our civilization, and our survival depend on these bonds of history, culture, and memory. This is the most important part for all of us to summarize. The fundamental question of our time is whether the West has the will to survive. Do we have the confidence in our values to defend them at any cost? Do we have enough respect for our citizens to protect our borders? Do we have the desire and the courage to preserve our civilization in the face of those who would subvert and destroy it? That is the question, my friends, that we need to ask all of ourselves for the next 389 days. The stakes have never been greater. If you want to know all the crimes that have been committed by the last administration, who's behind them, what it's going to take to defeat them, and my exclusive interview with the President, have a look. The War for America's Soul, and it is the war. God bless you all.
Hi, I'm Dr. Frank Simon. I'm an allergist and family doctor, board certified in both allergy and internal medicine. I specialize in allergy, headaches, sinus, hives, cough, asthma, hypertension, and diabetes. We're located at 1404 Browns Lane near Norton Suburban Hospital. Our phone number is 895-5088. We can see you tomorrow.
and I became a small group leader at the Portland Fellowship, helping those who are also struggling with just who they are. And it was helping them to understand who they are in Christ and how He created them to be. Then after being a small group leader for a while, I realized that at the Portland Fellowship I was known by my testimony. So I stepped away from the Portland Fellowship because everybody would approach me, "Oh, weren't you the one that lived as a man?" So I stepped away for about 4 years, and I came back because I really wanted to figure out, apart from the Portland Fellowship, who was I as a woman? Who had God created me to be, and how do I function outside of the Portland Fellowship? So the 4 years passed, and I came back to the Portland Fellowship, and eventually I began to teach, and then I became part of the board, and then again the Lord said, "I want you to become chair," so I was the chair, and then I stepped up into the position of being the women's ministry leader. And at one point, when I was preparing to teach at the Portland Fellowship on identity, I was looking through the material and I realized how free I was. I was no longer attracted to women. Didn't want that. Didn't want to live as a man. Oh my gosh. All these things. No offense, man. But I realized all these things that I had become free from. And I asked the Lord about that. And I said, "Lord, how did that happen?" Because I vowed I would never go back to being a woman. I vowed that. I said, "Lord, how did that happen?" And He ponders my question. And then He says, "I don't know." And I said, "Lord, how can you not know? You were there. You walked with me. You called me out. How do you not know?" And He said to me, "I never saw you that way." I came to realize that the Lord only ever saw me through His daughter and the plan that He had for me. I'm here today to tell you I am not the man I used to be.
We would have time for questions, unfortunately, because I heard a rumor that somebody who's apparently a big deal is coming to dinner tonight on a little bit of an accelerated schedule. So let me tell you, if you're sitting there and you're wondering what to do, let me tell you this, keep speaking truth. And I promise you it will be uncomfortable. God doesn't tell us it's going to be easy. In fact, He promises us that in this life we will have trouble, that He will overcome. Keep praying about ways that you can minister to other people's brokenness. Pray that the Holy Spirit reveals to you ways to reach out to people like these. And so in that way, you bring them into the fold of Christ's love. Let me tell you a couple of things that are no's in this story. Science is not fungible. Biology is not bigotry. Sex is not gender. But I'm going to leave you with a few yeses. God is bigger than pronouns, bigger than anyone's brokenness, bigger than any movement.
I would like to say, on behalf of all of us, to Kathy Grace, we love you.